So I wanted to talk about some animes that were pretty disappointing, at least for me. And I realized that, you could like these animes. You're perfectly fine in liking these animes. I'm just saying, for me, they were a bit disappointing. The first is one that I've finished most recently, The Rising of the Shield Hero, or Rising of the Shield Hero. This one, I think, is pretty much like agreed upon by the general community that it went down. It went down in quality and it went down in its story. It went down in its characters. But at first, the first ever episode is like an hour long. It does a really good way of introducing the characters. Does a really good job of introducing the world. It has a little bit of a twist in which it's one man against the world that he's been brought into. Everyone sees him as a horrible person, and there's this conspiracy or this theory that the city is set up against the shield hero, that they only praise the other heroes. And this showed promise. It was the first episode, and it was like, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be this guy building from the ground up, proving that he's better than everybody, proving that he can do it without them, without their help. But somewhere along the journey, it got a little muddled. So part of my problem with this show is the inclusion of the harem. I don't really like it. I mean, you can call it a harem. I guess you can also not call it a harem because it's not multiple girls. It's just three. But like Raftalia, granted, it always bothered me that she's still 10 years old. Keep in mind, even though she has, an adult body, she's still mentally 10 years old. So I didn't really like that. Philo, if you're really into lolis, I mean, hey, Philo was okay, but I mean, at the same time, she's literally an animal, so it's a bit of bestiality and lolicon. And then we had Malty, I believe her name was. Melty, whatever the purple-haired one was. She was just, I don't know what she was. She was like a tsundere, kind of, because she didn't want to admit to Naofumi that she liked him, but she obviously liked him. It's pretty obvious. This show, it had a strong start because it was very much like Naofumi figuring out how to be in this world when all the odds are against him. But then, like, about, I want to say, past when he gets the cursed shield, and that's another problem with the show. I didn't really like the power up of the cursed shield. And eventually the shield gives him this, like, type of armor as well. And I don't know, again, maybe just because I'm a fan of Berserk, it felt like a discount Berserk armor. Like the dark shield, the cursed armor, whatever the heck you call it. It felt like a discounted version of that. And that's just for me though. That's more personal. I don't know. If you read Berserk, do you feel like they kind of like did a discount version of the Berserk armor or with that cursed shield? I didn't really like the cursed shield. It was just like it shot fires and then it does like the Iron Maiden move and the like blood sacrifice move, but they're just like, they're not that cool, they're not like over the top and crazy. And granted, the show doesn't really try to be so over the top and crazy, but at times it kind of does because with Philo, like you had that Philo queen, or like the Fallopial, I forget what she's called, but the queen of the species that Philo is, coming out of nowhere, fighting a giant kaiju, a giant monster, like this weird CG T-Rex thing. It's like this fight between these two giant monsters, and it's just like, what is going on? And again, with the whole harem thing, where like everyone has to like Naofumi because he's actually a really, really good guy. Everyone else is horrible villains. The queen is like her past hero that like inspired her or like made her want the heroes to work together was the shield hero, and it's like, surprise, surprise, oh my god, now Fumi's a shield hero, like, and he does things like the head pat or like the laying on her lap thing where it's just like, oh, it's just like the other shield hero. And I don't know, I didn't really like that character. It was also just a character for the sake of filling up time is how it felt. I don't know how it's done in the manga or the light novel. Granted, I will get around to reading the manga someday. I'm not really a fan of light novels, but maybe I'll get into it eventually. For the way the show was done, I feel like it's not done like the way the manga is. I feel like it's really not. This one didn't really feel that way because like later on in the show, there's the other three heroes. There's the spear hero, the sword hero, and the bow hero. They became a joke. They became an utter joke. They were basically Team Rocket, where they just like blast off again. They show up, they spout nonsense, and then they disappear because they got defeated by super cool Naofumi. And the lead up to the three heroes church final boss confrontation, whatever you want to call it, was also really disappointing. Some boring old priest dude who we just meet and then he just dies. Like, that's it. We literally meet him so then that way he can die. And guess who does it? Naofumi, out of all people. Everyone else is too weak and not cool enough to beat him or edgy enough. So he's the only one with his cool edgy black shield that can beat them. It's horribly done. It's really just not good. There's these moments where like Raftalia will be like, going back a bit, there's moments where Raftalia would explain how her village was like, or like she was taken in with a bunch of the other demi-humans and they're all slaves, but it's like none of this was ever brought up before until this episode. And then after that episode where she supposedly like meets back up with her best friend and such, it's like after that episode she never brings it up again until the very end, when then it is revealed that Shield Hero has his own city now, and everybody that he met ends up going to this city, and it's just like, why? This is so dumb. Like, it's just so bad. I don't know. I couldn't get into it. The ending didn't do anything for me. The inclusion of Glass and those other two, the redhead guy and the blue-haired girl, I don't even remember their names, is how forgettable they were. The like rushed ending of them showing up and being like, we're from another world and we have waves similar to these, but we need to defeat you in order to save our land, but you need to defeat us in order to save your land. Like, that would have been more interesting. Maybe in your 20 episodes, maybe talk more about that rather than just having boring week to week adventures and then trying to wrap everything up in less than like 3 episodes. It just didn't really do a good job. The next anime I'm going to be talking about is Goblin Slayer. And if you know anything about Goblin Slayer, I'm sure you know about the first episode, so I won't delve on that. Just know that the first episode is very weird in my mind because it is a very different tone and a very different style than the rest of the show. The rest of the show feels very slice of lifey with a little bit of like light RPG / adventure story fantasy, I guess you could say. The first episode I actually really enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie. I thought like finally there's something that it shows the darkness in the world. It shows a different side of the fantasy land. No more sunshine and rainbows and stuff like that. But it quickly devolved. It very quickly devolved into a generic harem power fantasy where Goblin Slayer is this awesome dude who can't die, who is super overpowered, who loves fighting goblins. He literally only fights goblins. That was also part of the problem with the show, is Goblin Slayer himself, the empty tin can of a man who doesn't have a face because we can't see it, who doesn't have a personality because all he wants to do is hunt goblins because he's autistic. I don't know what it is. I can't get into it. Like, all the guy ever wants to do is just fight goblins, but of course there's a bunch of anime waifus around him who all want to be with him because he fights goblins. And he's such a tin can. I just can't get into it. And his design is also, it's kind of cool. I don't know, I didn't really like the horns. The horns on his helmet look pretty stupid. Like the cut off horns, they look, I don't know, that was just me. But everyone having their title of like their job class, I guess you could say, as their name also really bothered me, because it's like, do people not have names in this world? Like, priestess, she's not the only priestess in this world, so she has to have something that distincts her, right? She can't be the only priestess in this city. And I get it, it's very like D&D, and that like everyone's title is their job. But like, Guild Girl obviously has a name. She very obviously has a name. There's no way on her ID or like her paycheck it says Guild Girl. I don't know, like, and everyone's just like Goblin Slayer or Dwarf or like Great Swordsman or whatever. Like, come on, people have names. People obviously have names. And it bothered me that nobody ever got called by their name. Also, the use of Sword Maiden. As I saw something that explains Sword Maiden, like the way she's done in the anime is horrible. The way she's done in the manga and the light novel is apparently a lot better. But I'm getting around to it. There's a lot of stuff to read. There's a lot of stuff to watch. There's a lot of everything. But like the way Sword Maiden is handled in the anime, apparently it's done very horribly. They don't really explain her backstory. They don't really explain her logic and reasoning, why they're in that city fighting in the sewers, fighting all the goblins in the sewers. It's really rushed and horribly done. Sword Maiden also there, like come on, this character, like obviously this character, like we all know what the character's for. Like come on, let's not pretend here. And either way, it's like Sword Maiden, and then you have like Elf Archer, Priestess, Cowgirl, Guild Girl. Every single one wants to get with the Goblin Slayer, but all he wanted to do is kill goblins. Like it just didn't really, it didn't really work with me. Another thing is a problem. I'm pretty sure it's like halfway through, or it's during the Sword Maiden arc or whatever, the sewer fights, is that Goblin Slayer has a fake death, which I can't stand. I will tell you, I cannot stand it when a show or a movie or anything makes the main character seem like they died or like they lost or whatever. Like I can't get into it. Goblin Slayer has a fake death. It's just like immediately fixed because guess what? Priestess was naked in bed with him because she used a spell. And it's just like, okay, cool. Like, I get it. And then another thing that really bothered me about this show, and it's also in the Sword Maiden arc, is when they're in that city, there's literally a scene where they go to get ice cream. Like in this world where like the first episode establishes it as like a dark fantasy land where it's like it's like dark and grim, it's horrible, you don't want to be here, and then it's like, oh, but we're getting ice cream. Oh my god, are you kidding me with the ice cream? It's so like granted, the ice cream is later explained that like Goblin Slayer used it so then that way he could find a new way to kill goblins because of the way it freezes them or something. But like it was just like there's just seriously a scene where him and Priestess are getting ice cream. It bothered me so much. And it's just like the ending being that like all the characters that we've seen so far in the series are all gonna gather together because there's this giant goblin horde coming, and Goblin Slayer is like, I need all your help, so help me. And it's like a big, I guess it's supposed to be a hoorah, but it's not really a hoorah because it's like, it's boring. It's just a bunch of goblin slaying, you know? I don't know. I can't get into it. I really can't. The next anime that disappointed me was Elfen Lied. I think I'm saying the name right. Forgive me if I'm not saying the name right. This one, very much like Shield Hero, very much like Goblin Slayer, very much. It had a first episode where it really draws you in. It's like a completely different tone than the rest of the series, but you only know that after you watch the entire series. With Elfen Lied, it's like this opening where it's like this girl who's going on a bloody rampage, like taking out literally everybody, and it's just like, whoa, this is crazy, this is insane. And then the rest of the show becomes a slice of life with some supernatural elements and a little bit of like a love triangle, I guess you could say. There's a couple in it, and you know, who cares? Nobody remembers that. The only thing people remember from the show is the first episode. And I it sucks because I really liked it. I like the powers and like the supernaturalness of this world. It's shown that like the main girl, I believe her name is Lucy. I could be remembering that wrong, but she has like these invisible arms that like no one can see except for like other versions of her, and she can like literally rip people apart, move objects, and like it's just crazy. It's crazy. But it's very, very poorly used, and she ends up suffering an injury and losing her memory, so she just becomes like this adorable little moe girl, and just like it's just I didn't really like it. It was really, really boring, and I wondered, like, this is the anime people have been talking about? And then I realized people only ever talk about that first episode. They don't really talk about the rest of the show. Nobody remembers the rest of the show. The rest of the show is just boring. It's just a couple trying to raise this new girl that they met, and it's just like, it sucks. I don't know. I didn't really like it. I like the design of the main girl and her powers. It's really cool. There's a second girl that's like her that also has powers, but she ends up getting killed. Oh, spoiler, by the way. Oh, well, if you're here, you already know that I'm spoiling everything. Alright, I know this next one might get a little bit of hate, but I'm ready for it. So, the next anime that disappointed me, and this one really did disappoint me because I expected a lot more out of it. I expected a lot. There was a lot of build-up, there's a lot of expectations. They were sort of met, not really. The next anime that really, really disappointed me was Neon Genesis Evangelion. And I know. Listen, let me start by saying it is not a bad show. It is actually a very, very good show. I would very highly recommend that you watch Neon Genesis Evangelion. But there is a bit of disappointment with me at least. Because I went into this series expecting it to be a lot better than it was. It's still good. Believe me, it's still good. I have watched everything Neon Genesis Evangelion. I watched the original anime series. I watched the actual ending, that thing they put out later. I've watched all the movies, and it's good. It's really good, but it just hasn't met my expectations. I don't know why. I expected more out of this anime. I have watched it both subbed and dubbed. I haven't watched the newest dub. I know there's some controversy with the newest dub. But, I really do like the show. It has really cool mechs. It has really good creatures. The angels are really cool. It has a very interesting very interesting world. It has very interesting rules. There's tons of lore here to just, explore. But for some reason, the show just isn't what people told me it was going to be. It isn't to me, maybe. I don't know. I feel like maybe because I didn't grow up watching it. I feel like a lot of people grew up watching it and really connected with Shinji. Rei and Asuka, well, they're really cool. I do. Granted, I'm on Team Asuka. I ain't gonna lie, but I found them interesting. I find all the characters interesting. I find all the world and the creatures and the rules and the people in this world. I find it all very interesting. It's all very good, but it's just not there. It's just not what I expected. It's not what I thought it was. I've watched it twice now, and maybe I do need to rewatch it. I've watched the movies at least once, and I don't know. It wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. I just thought it was just gonna be a whole lot better. I feel like maybe I overhyped it too much for myself. I understand. Again, I'm not saying the show is bad. I'm just saying it didn't live up to my expectations. I thought it was going to be something that I would treasure, something that would be in my top 5, but it's not. It really isn't. It's a good show. Don't get me wrong, it's a good show, but it's definitely not anywhere near my favorites. And it's just something that I'll rewatch, but to be honest, I'm not in a rush to rewatch it. I don't know. I just couldn't really, I don't know what it is. I really don't know what it is. I got into it. I really did. I like the characters. I like the mechs. I like the creatures. But, it's just something didn't click. I don't know what it was that didn't click. But I know that there's tons of people that really, really, truly love the show. That the show is a 10 out of 10 for them. That they love it. That it's very, very good. I'm saying it's good. But I'm also saying it didn't reach my expectations. I don't know what I was expecting, to be honest. Maybe I was expecting too much. I think that's what it was, is I set my standards a little too high, and it didn't really meet my standards. But again, it's not a bad show. It just is a bit of a personal disappointment, I guess you could say. Because this has been built up for a while for me. People always telling me, even in high school, people were telling me, watch Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I just never watched it. So this is just some of the animes that have disappointed me. There's definitely a lot more, but I'm just going to leave it here at these 4. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Check the links in the description, and don't forget to subscribe for future rambles.